Right, we're recording. Good evening, guys, and thank you for joining me again. After an interesting weekend, we had the final of the South African Excel Championships at the Bidvest Alice offices, which is essentially at the Bidvest Bank offices in Sandton. And we had 14 participants that participated live. They essentially took three cases, or we took them through three cases. And the three cases were designed, well, the first one by you, Jason, and then the second one by Steyn, and the last one by me. The first case was called Clock Solitaire, and we'll cover that one in this video. Then we'll do Steyn's case called Steyn City in the second one, and which was essentially a city that received load shedding. And then the final case by me, it was called the Mzansi Hotel Group, and it's essentially a hotel group's occupancy figures over many sheets in the same Excel document. Which necessitated the use of something like Power Query. You could have used something like VBA as well, but Power Query would be the go-to for me, and I think for a couple of the contestants, we all agreed that that Power Query was the go-to. So yeah, the winner was crowned Mr. Alwyn Burkholz from Shop to Shop Africa. But that's currently he's actually a Pretoria boykie, but he's currently residing in Cape Town since January, and it was just amazing to meet all the contestants. Second place was Peter Pienaar, the third year accounting student from the University of Pretoria. So he essentially already paid for half of his ticket to Las Vegas to participate in the finals of the Collegiate Challenge, hopefully this year. So he really wants to go for that top 10 this year. He was 12 last year. And then in third place, we had Reino Burger from BDO. And he's actually currently from PE, so he also flew up for the finals. And then in fourth place, we had Reese Adams, and I think he also flew up from Cape Town. So a nice mixed bag of people. It was nice to meet everyone, and it was nice to spend some time. We actually spent time afterwards celebrating and just talking about Excel and problem solving in general, and it was just wonderful to meet everyone. So all the results will be live, and as soon as we have all the photographs, we'll share that on our socials as well. I guess let's get into the case, Jason. It was your case, so you want to quickly tell us about the case, where you came up with the idea, and how it was structured, and maybe just talk us through what the setup is, etc.
Yeah. Thanks, Renier. Thanks, guys. Firstly, apologies for not being there on Saturday. I was really bummed to miss the finals, but such is life. Anyway, I look forward to being part of the team again next year, and hopefully I'll be there in person to meet the guys that are at the top of the table. Yeah. So I guess as I'm sharing my screen, I'll just chat through, Clock Solitaire. This is by no means a unique idea that I've come up with. I used to play Clock Solitaire as a kid. It's an actual card game, something you can do by yourself. So I guess when you're a kid, you don't understand that there's literally no skill involved at all. It's purely algorithmic, right? So your whether you win or lose is decided as soon as you stop shuffling the cards, essentially. It was just a fun pastime that I remember as a kid, and I remember, trying to think of ideas for cases for the the Excel Championship, and thinking Clock Solitaire might be fun, but sort of wondering to myself, given that it's sort of fairly algorithmic and you can sort of predict the outcome based on the order of the cards, whether it would be too straightforward. But it seems like some of the guys struggled to I guess, more to understand the concept of the game, maybe, and less about the actual modeling that was required. So hopefully this will provide some clarification. I guess for me, it's always, in hindsight, it's always interesting to look back at how people interpreted a case that you've come up with, because in your own mind things seem obvious, and so it's always interesting to figure out what you should have explained better. But anyway, if I just run through the concept of what Clock Solitaire is, essentially you take a 52 card deck, standard playing cards, shuffle them up and deal them out in a clock pattern. And so on the screen here, if you look at this clock sort of layout, you've got the ace at the 1 position, then 2, 3, 4, all the way around to jack, queen, 11, and 12, and then king in the middle. And so you deal them out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then you put the 13th card in the middle of the clock face, and then you go, card number 14 goes back onto the ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then card number 26 would be the second king. And you deal out the 52 cards, and essentially you're left with 12 piles in a circle representing a clock face of 4 cards each, face down, sort of randomly shuffled, and you've got 4 cards in the middle in that king pile, also randomly shuffled face down. And you pick up the first card out of the king pile, and let's say it's a 6, then you take that card and you put it at the bottom of the 6 pile, and you pick up the top card of the 6 pile, and then you say that's a 2, you take that and you put it at the bottom of the 2 pile, pick up the top card on the 2 pile. And then if it's a king, you put it in the middle and you pick up the next, king card. And you win or lose depending on when the last king is revealed. And so the idea is that you need to reveal all of the cards before you find the 4th king. Now, just, as I said, there's no skill involved. You only ever win if the last king is the last card that you pick up, because that's the only way you can reveal all the other cards. You can't. There's no. You can't. Like. There's no way to manipulate a winner or a loss here. So that's just the general context of the game. And so what I'd done, in fact, in all of the rounds, is I'd basically just put the 52 cards that had been dealt, and the order that they were dealt. And so, the participants were required to first extract those cards into separate columns or cells, or however they approached it, then come up with this sort of clock layout. And I'll chat through how I did that when we get to level 3. The slight nuance here was that you had to flip the order, because when you're dealing them, the first card that you deal is at the bottom of the pile, and so it's only the 4th card that hits a particular pile. That's the first card you pick up in that pile. So there was a bit of a nuance there, and then essentially, trying to figure out where the last king was by the end of the case. So that was really the setup from my side. I'd be interested to hear from you, Steyn and Renier, how you tackled the first few levels, and then I can potentially show my thinking around, the later on levels where I started building a model.
Yeah, so maybe Steyn was there with me at the finals, and I think it was just enjoyable to not have to participate, but to see how the guys actually tackle the cases. It was a complete silence while they were doing the cases, which was awesome. The guys just really came out, and the wonderful thing was after the first round, the top 4 continued into round 2, and then the top 2 did the final case. But there was still more than half of the contestants or participants actually still did round 2 and 3, just because they were there to compete and they were there to solve problems, and it was just magical to see them participate. So maybe Steyn, you tell us what did you do for level 1 and 2, and what did you think about the weekend, perhaps?
Well, yeah, the weekend, I quite enjoyed it. It was strange not having to compete, but it was also interesting to set up the case design, which was far more challenging than I would have expected it to be prior to having done it myself. So for the first question, what I did, your basically looking for the last card placed in the king's pile, which is basically just the last card. So there I just did a right 2 to get the last card, and then that gave me my answer.
But you were lucky there that you didn't have a 10 of something, right? Because then otherwise you would have had, you would have needed a right 3, but you were lucky there.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that, but it would probably have been strange if I saw a 0 and then a suit. Then that would have probably, I would have realized it.
Yeah, so maybe before you move on, I did a text after, and I think Jason also did something completely different. I did a text after, and I looked for the semicolon space because there's a semicolon and a space between each card, and then I looked for the 51st iteration or the 51st. I don't know what they call it in the formula. You just see what it's called in the formula. So the instance number. So I looked for instance number 51. So the 51st time that you find the semicolon space, give me the text after that. And that gave me the answer as well. So whichever way, we all got to the same answer. Jason, you did it in a different way. I think you took take or something like that, hey?
Yeah, I leveraged the sort of new take function and the fact that you can put a -1 to get the last instance of an array. So -1 basically just works from the bottom up. And so I just use a straight text split to split out the cards into each, into a set of 52 card cells, an array, and then take with a -1 argument to just take the last one. Yeah, as you say, I think, funny enough, I think I did the right (2) when I was setting up the game and sort of playing around with it and testing it, and then I got a 10 or an 11 or whatever. No, it wouldn't have been 11. It was only the 10 in the. Yeah, you've got Jack, Queen, and King, so it's only single characters. So it's only the 10, and I got a 10, and I couldn't figure out what was going wrong. And then I saw the 0, as Steyn said, but it took me a couple minutes to figure out what had happened. And I guess I must have rejigged the layout of the cards that were put down in case 1, because I definitely came across that instance when I was playing around setting up the case. But yeah, as you say, three perfectly valid solutions.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool that we all got different solutions for the simplest level. Sorry, Steyn, you continue with level 2.
Yes, so level 2, you're looking for the card that's placed first on the king pile, which is basically just the 13th card. So what I did there is I just did the text split based on the semicolon and space, and then I just got the 13th item in that array, which gives me my results.
Yeah, so my solution was exactly the same. I see the only difference between your formula and mine was you said row 1 and then column 13. I just left row 1 blank because it gives me the same answer. So it's because it's not a necessary parameter. I left the one out. But yeah, otherwise perfectly exactly the same. I guess you as well, Jason.
Yeah, I got literally, I think Renier probably the same as you. I don't have the (1) argument, but same answer. Yeah.
Cool. Jason, you want to show us your model, maybe?
Yeah, sure. So I think my intention with level 1 and level 2 was to make sure that there was an understanding about how the cards were laid out, right? So what was the first card you were picking up? That was level 1. And then what was the first king that was put down? So just trying to give the participants a sense of getting into the thinking behind the rules of the game. And as we've shown, those two answers, if you understood the rules, were actually fairly easy from a formula perspective, but it was more just understanding the logic of the game that was maybe the challenge. But from level 3 onwards, I think it became a lot more efficient in my mind to actually build out a bit of a model that could be utilized. And in fact, I ended up using the same model, but just pulling different parts of the output to answer the rest of the questions, really. I think except bonus 3, which I did as a sort of a Monte Carlo simulation. But but yeah, so level 3, what is the second card picked up, right? And so the logic here is that the first card you pick up is the same card always. It's the top card on the king pile. It's that item that we did in level 1. The second card that you pick up is then dictated by the card that you see from that top card on the king pile. So in the example I did earlier when I was sort of introing the case, I think I said something like you pick up the first card in the king pile and you see a 6. The suit is irrelevant in this game, by the way. So could have simplified that, but the suits added a nice sort of twist to the thing, and I guess help you to have unique cards at least, not just otherwise you'd have 4 of each card if you just had 4s and 5s and 6s. But the suit, in terms of dictating the rules of the game, completely irrelevant. So let's say you pick up the top card in the king pile, you see a 6, you put that card at the bottom face up of the 6 pile, and then you pick up the top card on the 6 pile. And so this level 3 was testing, could you understand the logic that you were now moving to the pile that's dictated by the king card, the first king card, and that you're taking the top card on that pile, which is eventually the 4th card that was dealt to the pile. So the logic there was sort of trying to help build that up. And so the way that I got to that model is, actually let me go to example 3. And apologies if I'm sure that some of my rows are in slightly different places to you guys. This is literally the version of the model that I used to build and test the case. So it's quite likely that things shifted around before the final iteration. But as we were saying before the call, this is very much a quick and dirty walkthrough. So I'm literally using the file that I used to set up the case. So sort of typical approach for these cases, use some sort of lookup function to pull in the scenario that you are looking at trying to model. So example 3, I've just used an X lookup looking for example 3, off of the answer sheet. In this case would have been the case sheet, I guess, if you were doing it from scratch. And that pulls in the specific string of cards. And then I used text split with the semicolon space delimiter to break them out into individual cells, and then did a wrap rows to basically put them in 4 rows of 13 columns. And so this was my start to set up the 13 positions of that clock face with the center card as well. The point that I mentioned at the beginning is you deal the 6 of diamonds into that ace position, then you deal the king of hearts into that 2 position, but those become the bottom cards of the pile. And so I just did a manual number 4321 of alongside these, and then apologies, and then did an index of this output with the wrap rows and against the 4321, which basically just flipped it over. And so I then ended up with the king on top, then the 4, then the queen, then the 6, and 3, 7, 6 king. And that then gave me the order in which the cards would actually be picked up, not dealt. And so then this ultimate array gave me the 13 decks of cards in the order in which I was going to pick up the cards. And so the position of the next card is saying, essentially move number 1 is always going to be this cell, right? It's always going to be the top card on the king pile. Then the next card that you pick up is going to go to position 8. So I need to figure out that I'm going to, the Queen of Hearts here. The Queen of Hearts for level 3, this was sufficient, right? You could just have literally picked up the column number here, which is dictated by the value, not the suit, and picked up the first card, because that's all that you needed for this level. But to make this calculation usable for subsequent phases, you did have to build in some allowance to move down the column. So for column 8, the next time I get an 8, which is I guess in 2 moves time, so I go from column 8 Queen of Hearts, I go to the Queen, there's another 8, right? So my next 8 is now the 9 of Diamonds. So you need to have a way to offset your rows down as well. And so I did that using a count if, essentially. How many of this iteration of number have I seen before I get to this point? And if I just highlight, let me highlight a range where you can see some values. This is basically an expanding reference range to count how many of the aces have I seen in this range so far. And the count then basically offsets my row number. So this is really just an index. It's an index of the whole range, and it's saying, the row number is that count offset, and the column number is the matching the I guess the 6 or the 8 or the 9, whatever the card that you picked up to tell you in which pile to go to. So that at the heart is what I got to. The additional point that I added into the formula to help for subsequent phases was if you get to the 4th king, then your count essentially goes beyond the range and you get an error. And so I just added an if error to tell me that I've lost the game. And essentially what that does is, in this particular game, move 51 was the last king, and then all the rest of the cards show lost, basically. You just don't get there. And this, so maybe I've spent a bit more time for the purpose of level 3, but this concept of setting it up like this allowed me to do, all the other questions basically, in a row. And you can see that question 3, question 4, and question 5 for me are literally just data tables, pulling off of different positions on, either this big table or this sort of setup in terms of what the next card is. So question 3, I'm just linking to move number 2. Question 4, I was linking to move number 10. Question 4 was, what is the 10th card picked up? And then question 5, basically looking up where was the last king. And so the question 5 was, on what turn do you lose the game? And so basically using the XLOOKUP for a king, but taking advantage of the fact that XLOOKUP can do a bottom to top search. And so really setting up this table and this table allowed me to answer all the questions in one shot, which was really helpful.
Cool. Can I steal the share quickly? Okay, you're giving it away. So what I did was very, very similar. I also built from level 3 onwards. I could just refer back to my model, and got exactly the same answers as you did, and essentially what I did was, like I said, very similar. I had the game picker at the top, and then I also did the XLOOKUP like you did, and I also did the text split. I broke it up a little bit. Mine was a little bit easier. The formula was split out in such a way that it reads a bit easier. But instead of wrap rows, I did wrap cols. To me, it just works easy. It works more easily to work with columns going down. So I used the same sort of headings as you did, but I did it 1, 2, 3, 4 from the beginning, and then what I did was I'll get to my index now as well. But I also used the index like you did, and essentially all I did was I also started with a sort of static king to say we always start with the king, and then I said, well, your first card that you pick up is that one. So that was a sort of static reference as well. With this formula, I just did a left for the length -1 to just extract the value from it. So that caters for the tens as well. And then the X lookup in my case was, let me just do this. No, that's the formula text. So my X lookup in this case was just referring to the whole range as well. But instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, I just went 5 minus the running count. And my running count was exactly the same way. It was exactly done in the same way as yours, which is essentially a locked top reference count if, just to count how many of each card I got. My index was just running backwards in this case, so I didn't have to split, or I didn't have to rebuild the actual deck of cards. I just went backwards like that. And then the only other difference was level 5 for me. Instead of an X lookup, I think your X lookup was actually simpler. I did a max ifs. So I just said, give me the max. Again, I'm referring to the formula text. Give me the max where this value, give me the max of the card numbers in the sequence, where the king, or where this card is a king. And sorry, where the king is a 5, because what I was doing is I was doing the running count, and it's counting this one. So by the time the last king is pulled, it counts 5 times upwards. So yeah, I didn't do nice error handling like you, because I was working under time pressure. So I just didn't deal with the errors. But it's giving me a spill here because it's trying to reference an actual row or column or it brings back a row or column, because it would essentially get to a 0 or something. And that's the reason for it. But very similar in the way that we've structured our answers. I also did data tables for each. This one refers to that first card after the initial setup. The level 4 one also refers to the 10th card there. Like I said, the level 5 is the max ifs. So I was just counting the max of, or the value of where the last king sits. And also running that through a data table. And then I guess, yeah, we'll get to the bonuses now, but bonus 1 was also, I think this was bonus 1. That was I was asking oh no, so I think that was bonus 2 perhaps. But yeah, Steyn, you maybe want to take us through the bonuses.
Okay. Yes.
You can steal the share again. Well, I'll give it to you.
Okay. Yeah, so bonus 1 was basically just what card was, or let's first, my model was almost exactly the same as Renier. Even the orientation of the board was also the same. So the first bonus question is game 50. What card was on top of the queen's pile? So there I just run it for game 50, and then top of the queen's pile is basically that card. And then bonus question 2 is how many red cards and diamond cards were on top of the piles. So there I just did right for the top pile and then added them together, and then I ran a data table on it. And then for bonus question 3, what I did is I just copied one of the games and just sorted it, but you didn't really need to sort it. And then I just did the rand to just to start in a random number to each of the values. And then I did the sort, just to sort it from small to largest. And that then gave me a random game. And then I just ran a data table for 100,000 values. And that then gave me my value of about 42.39 or so. And
that's cool. Sorry, yeah, okay.
Yes, I also ran it for 1 million lines just to check that the answer is still valid. And I think then I got like 43.38 or so. So it was very close to the 100,000 one.
So interestingly enough, I did the recommendation. I see the recommendation is run it across 100,000 random games. I think I ran it across less than that. Oh yeah, I just did it over 1,000 games. But maybe let me just show what I did. So I literally just took my model and I copied it. I copied the sheet across, just to sort of remove the noise. And then I took one of those games in the examples or in the set in the data set, and I did a index of this array for a unique rand array of 500. I just took a random 500 cards, from 1 to 52. So made sure that it indexes each card once, but the unique helps me get it back to one deck of 52 again. So I couldn't think of something more elegant in the time, and I just said, well, this works for me. So this would, every time I recalculate, it would. Okay, I shouldn't have. Oh yeah, there we go. So every time I recalculate, it reshuffles the cards for me. Apply the same what do you call it, wrap columns, and I followed the exact same logic, and all I did was I used that same max ifs, and ran it across 1,000. So 1,000 gets me 42 as well. In some cases, it actually got me to 43. So if I run it a couple of times, sometimes it'll actually round it up to 43. And actually, one of our finalists, Peter, actually got 43 as well. So I had to give him those points because yeah, it's either 42 or 43. And just interestingly enough, I was wondering, how many times, or what's the average percentage of your win rate? And it's around about 7.5 to 8%. So only 8% of the time will you actually hit a king on the 52nd card. So that's what's nice about using data tables, is you can actually answer questions like that quickly and easily. And you can run it across. I mean, this sequence, I could make it 1,000,000 like Steyn did, and I can just run my data table across it, run a recalculation, and I've got my answer. So that's the magic of the data table. And for me, the example that you were talking about, I think it's bonus question 2. Yeah, how many red cards? So I think the red cards, the first time I had a case where cards were applicable, it confused the hell out of me. And I was panicking, like, how do you count color? And I was like, afterwards, I was like, you're stupid. When you're under pressure, it's diamonds and hearts. So all I did was I did an if. So if either the right is a diamond, or the right of that value is a heart, then give me back a 1, otherwise a 0. And then I just did a sum of those, and then did a master sum across all 100 games, and that gave me the 651. So actually, if you take this case and you take it down to its core, it's actually a nice simple case if you are used to these questions and these models. So yeah, really fun case. And yeah, the finalists did struggle. They did struggle a bit. We didn't get very high marks on round 1. We actually saw some of the best competitors, or some of the better competitors, actually fall out, in this case. And I think what happened as well, what we picked up, is some people interpreted the rules or the setup differently. I'm not sure, but it's like they thought that you are packing it face up and then turn it down or something, so that it sort of changes the shuffle. And apparently, 1 or 2 of the example results would give you the same answer, and they sort of ran with that answer. So a lot of them got to 320 here on the Unicode check, and a lot of them got to a 300 and something as well. But Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't allow for that. So in future, what we'll do, perhaps, and what we've discussed is in future we will probably make the finals a 3-round finals. So your aggregate score after the 3 rounds is what determines your placement. I think that's more fair, because a simple interpretation rule could actually throw your first round and then kick you out of the tournament, where you would have done much better in the later rounds. So yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say. I don't know if there's anything else from you guys.
Yeah, all good. Thanks. Interesting explanations and similar approach on the data table Monte Carlo simulation. I think that's really cool. The closing remark from my side is I was nervous about whether anybody would Google the answer for the bonus question number 3. Because
didn't know you could Google it.
because it's a game. I didn't even disguise the name of the game, and because there's no skill involved, the average number of cards, whatever, if you just Google it, it comes up with the answer. So yeah, interesting. Anyway, and also the win rate. What's the average win rate? And it's 1 in 13. It's basically the number of suits. Not the number of suits, the number of cards. 1 in 13, which is the 7% that you spoke about. So I was wondering if anybody would try and Google the thing. I didn't know who had access to internet or not, but anyway, just a bit of fun. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. You probably could have asked ChatGPT as well. I'm sure ChatGPT would have given you the answer as well. So, but yeah, fun case. So what we'll do is we'll find another time in our busy schedules to talk through the next case as soon as possible, which is Steyn's case called Steyn City. And then we'll take you guys through our model there. That was definitely a more challenging case. That was actually planned for qualifying for the second qualifying round, and then we said it's too difficult, let's keep it for the finals. But like I said, the guys actually did better in Steyn City. I'm thinking it's because the pressure was off a little bit, but even the guys that still had pressure on them didn't do too badly. I think Peter Pino did really well in that case, if I remember correctly. But I think he had prepared, because it was similar to previous cases that we've seen. I think we saw a similar case, a city map type of case in last year's Microsoft Excel World Championship. Yeah, but our top 8 actually won tickets to the World Championship. So our top 8 in South Africa will be participating in the Microsoft Excel World Championship. So yeah, there was a lot at stake this past weekend, and it was awesome. And like I said, we'll share the results soon on our socials with some photos as well. And then yeah, we'll catch up soon again. Thanks for your time, guys. I'll stop recording now, and then we'll see each other for the next one.